of this group is to pass information on to people, to Christians, who don't maybe know about cosmology, about evolution, about the arguments, about what science is saying, what's happening, okay? So today we're going to be talking about time, space, matter, and energy. How did we get here? Now, that really means, how did it all come about? Okay, as Christians, we believe God created us. I believe God created the first person, and He created a way of everybody else being born. So we're all created by God. But we're all made up of matter and energy. We're the same stuff that's in the dirt, so to speak. And as it says in the Bible, Adam came from the dirt. So that's interesting, and I'm going to talk about what science is saying, and I use the term science somewhat cautiously, in that I believe in science. We talked about the definition of science last Thursday, and I believe in science as it is, meaning knowledge and connected to the truth. I believe in all that. I don't necessarily believe in what scientists tell me. I'm very skeptical about things that I read and hear about and see. Okay. Let's get started at the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Now that's Genesis 1 through 3. In those 3 verses, you have everything that science studies. Now, if you think about people who do not believe in the Bible, and they say, well, Genesis is a really interesting story about Adam and Eve and all that, and people don't really know who wrote Genesis. It's thought that Moses did, probably from some information passed down to him through Adam and such, and maybe even God himself. But it's interesting that in the first 3 verses, it really describes what the reality we live in. Number 1, it says, in the beginning. The beginning of time. There was no time before that. The time didn't mean anything. That's when time started. And time is a very important element in science. Heaven, space. The Bible refers to 3 heavens. We'll go over those. Talk about what that really means and why it is important that we see how right there in the first verse of Genesis it covers that. Earth also means matter, land. He was talking, I think the writer was talking about the earth itself, or the matter that made up the earth, because he later talks about the sun and the stars and all the other things that were actually created on day 4. And then, of course, let there be light. Light is energy. Everything, all the energy there is, comes from heat and light energy. And the sun powers our planet. You would not be alive without the sun, obviously. And all the energy that you actually end up having, whatever level that is, like mine's a little bit low these days, but comes from the food you eat, the nutrients you take in. All those nutrients are provided by the sun and photosynthesis and all the things that happen. It's a long process of a cycle. But anyway, so light is energy. So here we have time, space, matter, and energy, all talked about in the first 3 verses of Genesis. Now, let's talk about time just a minute. We'll talk about some things you might not know about time. Based on the theory of general relativity, who came up with the theory of general relativity? Right? What? Einstein. Who else? Somebody else said Einstein.
I said Albert Einstein.
Albert. No, each other now. Anybody else said it? Okay. All right. Albert Einstein was a very brilliant man. Newtonian physics talks about gravity, and you know the old story about the apple fell and Newton looked at it and said, why did that happen? And he tried to figure out how gravity worked. And the understanding was, because it's never been measured, that you could drop a heavy object and a light object, they'd fall at different rates. Because the Earth would pull the other one faster. It doesn't happen. All objects, except for maybe the way they're designed, like a wing, would fall as fast because it would flop. I mean, anything solid, no matter how big it is, falls at the same rate. That's what Newton figured out. Very simple. He did come up with a formula, which is very interesting. We'll talk about later. Based on the theory of general relativity, the rate at which time passes at a point in the universe is affected by two things: the speed you're moving and the amount of gravity you're experiencing. We don't have that problem. We on the Earth do not experience time passing by any different at any time. Because we're in a fixed gravitational situation, we're also not moving very quickly. Because time slowing down when it comes to velocity or speed is when you get close to the speed of light. Okay? You all remember the old story about the two brothers who were 20 years old, one gets in a spaceship, one stays on the Earth. The one in the spaceship flies at very close to the speed of light. And the guy on Earth experiences 20 years. His brother comes back after flying for 20 years. He looks the same as he left. That's called what's it called? Twin paradox, I think. But what it means is that if you're, and this has been proven, this has been tested, this is not something that's science fiction. What happens is all natural processes, that's the vibration of molecules, the gravity, anything that is a natural process, slows down to where time just goes slower, quite a bit slower, depending on the difference. But you wouldn't know the difference. If you were the 20-year-old that got on the thing went at the speed of light and you got back, you would think you had been gone for, I don't know, half a year or 3 months. That's what you would have experienced. But your brother would experience 20 years. That's what general relativity says, okay? Nobody argues about that. I'm not telling you something that an evolutionist or a secular cosmologist would come and say, that's not true. No, they all agree with that. This is all science, okay? And the one that most people don't understand is about gravity. If you are experiencing, we all experience the same amount of gravity, the rate of gravity here. If you're on the moon, it's less gravity because the moon is less mass. It has less mass. You have the same amount of mass, less gravity. Time would go by for someone on the moon faster than it would for you on the Earth. Okay? This is proven. They've taken electronic clocks or atomic clocks and put it on the Earth at zero sea level and taken them up in put them on a satellite, and they check their exact clocks. They're all perfectly timed, and there's a nanosecond a year. They're different. Doesn't sound like much, but it is there. All right. I tell you this, see, the faster you're moving, the slower time passes. The less gravity you are experiencing, the faster time passes. Okay?